prime time on Saturday, we have a big game as well between France and Argentina. This is at the Stade de France in Paris. Kick-off 9 p.m. local time, 8 p.m. ours. I love a good late French kick-off. They love it too. They've cleared the top couture for it.
Yes.
Ben O'Keefe takes charge of the game, obviously of New Zealand. Luke Pearce on the sidelines with Christoph Ridley and Brendan Pickrell in as the TMO.
Yeah.
Obviously, France have come into this on quite a high ebb. They had a curious season of ups and downs. They obviously were the only team to beat Wales in the Six Nations this year, and ended the season with an ugly defeat to Scotland.
They did. They won a great game over in Australia, but lost the series.
Lost the two, yeah.
And upon reflection, they probably should have just kicked it out in that first test,
as they should have done against Scotland when they got the ball back in 80 minutes. One of the
things, crazy.
They just have moments of madness that'd make you doubt, but they also have moments of absolute brilliance to them. They're a young side, but a very hungry one, developing a lovely attacking offense that is pure French brilliance. And the nuts and bolts of the team look well.
They actually stumbled upon, given that it was accused that they picked a third string side to go to Australia, but what they ended up having with Kuyu and Jamine was kind of a better kicking acumen and a better ability to exit and play a kicking game than they had in the Six Nations, although they weren't quite as flash with the running game, but they still had plenty of flash. They have loads of talent. But just a little bit of history on this. It's actually France are Argentina's most frequent opponent of all time, which is interesting. I think in total they've met 51 times. France have won 36, Argentina 14, and they've drawn once. They've also met each other 3 times at the World Cup. In tournament opening game, France won 17. Or sorry, was it in 1999? France knocked them out in the quarter final, and then in 2007, Argentina beat France 17-12 in the tournament open.
They beat them twice in that tournament.
In the playoff then as well. Yeah. So they have an interesting history. Yeah, I think during Argentina's kind of formative era from 1949 to 1979, they played each other 13 times. So France were kind of very involved in the development of rugby in Argentina. And it is always a colourful game. Like France obviously with the winning record overall, but interestingly, since 2000, which is kind of the pro era, which is more relevant, but since then the series has been very close fought. Argentina has the edge, is 10-7 Argentina in wins, but the vast majority of those games were decided by less than a converted try.
And there you go.
That's always a tight one.
Interesting.
Good game.
It is a good game. I mean, I think that this French team is obviously in a much better place than the Pumas team right now. They will come in as hot favourites.
And there was about a decade here post 2000 where France were nowhere, whereas Argentina
post 2010.
Post 2000 in terms of that record, a lot of that happened where Argentina managed to get themselves to the World Cup semi-final and then get into the Rugby Championship and do very good things. And now momentum has kind of shifted the other way, where Argentina aren't quite so good as those teams from before, and France are starting to rediscover some of their verve for playing and some of their offensive instincts and just some of their quality, of which they have lots.
Right now this is a match between one team that is embracing their identity and one team that is not. The Pumas for me are, well, as much as they do reference the idea of being a scrummaging team as a forward oriented team, and I'm sure if you ask Ledesma what an Argentine rugby team looks like, he would put together something like what he has put together. But in my mind, certainly if you look at the success of the aughts, they are a footballing team, they're a hungry team, they're an offensive team, they're a team that scores some incredible coast-to-coast tries, as they did in that World Cup in 2007 and again in 2015.
True.
Those two teams were special, and those two teams should be the template for this team. So far in the season we haven't seen too much of that.
True.
And it'll be on them to right that ship this November, and we'll see what kind of ebb they come in on. From France's point of view, we're just going to look at it from them first of all as the hosts of the game. We have their squad. Somewhat settled front row: Cyril Bay, Julien Marchand and Mohamed Ouas. They've been together pretty much throughout the
Six Nations. Anyway, did they go? I'm not sure if they went to Australia.
No, they didn't. But I mean, it's since Galtier's taken over, I think they've been his first choice 3. They got Flamont and Willemse in as the two locks. Willemse, of course, has taken his game to another level in recent times.
Very good during the Six Nations, wasn't he?
Yeah, super player. Francois Cameron Wokey and Anthony J-Launch make up an interesting back row.
There, J-Launch getting just reward for his really good showing in Australia, and he was captaining the side when on that campaign.
Yeah, and interesting little back row. No Charles Olivon, and as such, Antoine Dupont takes on the captaincy.
That's always interesting. He is a very much a box office figure. It'd be good to see him back in the French jersey. Obviously, Couillou, he ceded to Couillou for the summer campaign, but he's back in now.
Yeah, indeed, and
he started very well.
Dupont started the season freakishly. So too did Roman Ntamack, but he is not the out half for this game. Jalibert starts at 10. Ntamack moved out to 12 to partner with Gael Ficou, who will obviously clean up any defensive issues that yields.
Yeah,
that is a very good midfield.
And they still have guys like Vakatawa, who isn't in that midfield, who's still able to be in. And spoiled for choice. They
have Penaud on the right wing, obviously all class, and then two of the three who played against Australia rewarded for their form. Jaminet, who you highlighted with that class boot, keeps his position at fullback, giving them that kicking option.
Sure.
And they have Villiers on the other wing, who is a awesome lethal finisher himself.
Awesome in that tour. Yeah, lots of quality, as is always the case. What are they rocking on the bench?
6'2", interestingly. They've gone Movaka
with the extra 10 out there on the field already, and Jaminet has played 10 as well.
Yeah.
So
just the two back subs. Luku, who you like, obviously.
I think he's a very good player.
Bordeaux, he gets a shout covering scrum half. Jonathan Dante covering the rest of the back line, mostly a centre. But they've got Movaka, Jean-Baptiste Gros, Demba Bamba, Roman Taufi Fanua, Gregory Aldrit, and Siku Makalu to bring on his forwards. Very good forward impact in this game, and lined up against a comparatively weaker looking Pumas bench that could definitely yield results for them.
Sure.
It's an exciting game. I love the idea of this Ntamack Jalibert access, and I'm curious to see what they bring out.
And with Ficou outside them, the passing could be so good. There's potential for them to absolutely light it up if they can hit the ground running, because the Pumas will likely give them a lot of ball with which to attack, and with the addition of Jaminet in the backfield, they might have solved some of their exiting woes, because they have two out halves and a really good kicking fullback as well as a passing axis. It looks rounded enough that it could bring them forward to that next level that they were missing, because they went toe to, they were the other argument. It was Wales were the most clinical side in the Six Nations, but the other argument was France, because whenever they got a sniff of the try line, they got there. The issue was that they would only get 2 or 3 chances to do it a game, because their kicking game was pants. And that's they improved that. They flipped that on its head in Australia, to be honest. They were the team exiting with more efficiency than Australia throughout that whole tour. So it makes sense that they've taken some of these learnings and these positives into this game now, where they should be trying to kick themselves down the field, confident, beyond confident, that the consequences aren't that severe against this Argentinian team. If you just run up in a line, more than likely they'll kick it back to you and try and defend themselves, and you'll probably inch your way up the in kick tennis ways, inch your way up the field that way, or deal with a sloppy kick from Argentina and get your counter attacking running flair going, but doing it on your terms.
I mean, they're a wonderful matchup on offense of sort of structured attack. I mean, we saw against us the Wallabies, they isolated a few areas of weakness in the Aussie defence.
Was it England that set piece try they scored again? Was that against England, that absolute peach?
And they scored some glorious tries. Villiers grabbed a couple as well in that Australia tour. And then they have the chaos opportunities, the little bouncing ball off a kick, and they just know so well what to do. No side floods a channel. No side can execute a 3-on-2 in a phone box quite like France.
It's true. Even the All Blacks don't do it quite the same way. Well, all within the tram lines. 4 players, 4 sets of hands against 3 players, and it's well
somehow executed. They work it. Exactly. That's the kind of team they are. It's a wonderful test for them, because the Pumas' defense is stingy as all hell. They hold their width.
They will defend them well. They'll shut them down a few times. For sure, but the issue what France should be banking on is that if they are to kick, just kick deep and back your own defense to deal with their kind of fledgling offense. They will kick it back to them eventually, 100%, if they can just hold their discipline. The only danger is the one that was illustrated by the 2020 vintage of the Wallabies, where if you get a bit too gung-ho and start flinging the ball around with reckless abandon in your own half and on your own 10 metre line, then you might get gobbled up by this game defense and give kickable penalty, and suddenly 3-6-9-12 the Pumas are in the game.
Don't play a silly game, especially when you can lean on your Sean Edwards defense if you need to. That defense was one of the stories of the Six Nations as well. They gave up a lot of ball to a lot of teams, as you said, couldn't exit, but they did hold their own in most games because their defense was so good. Gail Fiku in particular from 13, fantastic defender, but they just, a bit like the Springboks and that old Wales team when Sean Edwards was in charge, they just seem to have an extra energy about them on the fold. Whenever they get exposed on the outside, the cover defence just seems to get there. And that is what's...
They're holding sprint a lot of times on defence, which a lot of teams don't. There's a lot of times they're onto jog mode when they don't have the ball, and it's when you're exposed.
Ireland, by contrast, they're a hungry team off the ball now, France, and that is just a night and day difference to what they used to be. It used to be kind of shootout, you score, we score. It is not that anymore. They show some serious pride in defending their line, and up against a sort of a developing offense with some good players, Facundo Issa back in for the Pumas, and some good physical players like Matera, obviously some talented players out wide,
good ball runners,
but when it's such a fledgling little offense, they should be hungry and they should be keen to get out of the line. I'm curious to see, like Francois Crowe, he doesn't need to earn his name. He's been brilliant as a defender, on the blind side flank, but how good can Woki be? We know he's got all the skills. What can he do on the defensive side of the ball? He's up against a good back row. Can he win his contacts? Can he get some jackal steals? It's a good little debut for him, and likewise Jelange. I mean, there is competition in that back row, and obviously the likes of Aldrich to come on off the bench, so there's a bit of pressure on those back row forwards to deliver.
I think it's kind of audition time for all of them. Put your hand up if you want to stay in the jersey. I think generally if they can manage the territory and manage their discipline, they will find more scores than the Pumas, and that's going to be their recipe. The only trapping is to get kind of vexed by what the Pumas are doing and then end up, like, you don't need to be giving away a silly yellow card or something, getting instigated up into being frustrated and then giving away something silly. Those are the ins that you need to contain and control, and that little bit of game management. But I kind of back Jalibert as the 10. Like, it's good that he's the 10. I think he's slightly better at it than Ntomac in those kinds of games, because to be honest, Bordeaux just manufacture those kinds of games all the time and manage to win them. So it's a good balance of the team, and the few trappings they have to avoid, I'd be confident they can avoid.
And now just to look at it from the Pumas' point of view, obviously we have their squad, and they've got Thomas Gallo, Julian Montoya, and Gomez Cadea back in the squad at tight head. So they have bolstered their squad with a few men who they're missing from the Rugby Championship. It's still the Guido Petty, Lavanini maniacal second row combination. Then Pablo Matera and Marcus Kramer, the madman, at 7, and Facundo Issa mercifully back into the side. He's a baller and a physical one at that.
True.
And, he's definitely a welcome addition, and gives them a little bit of ball playing for me, especially in the absence of Bruni. They have gone for Cabelli at 9, which I don't always love because he's a little slower, more kicking oriented. But they have good for them going for Santiago Carreras at 10 again. It kind of looked a little better.
It did look a little better.
Like, he's on the wing for Gloucester, but playing well.
He looked very good for Gloucester in the last game I saw them play last weekend. So it's good to put a footballer at 10 more so than a kicker of it. But what I really want to see from them is a bit more shape, because they started with Carreras. They looked better than they had done, which was abysmal without Carreras at 10. Then Carreras was at 10. He's a running threat and he likes a decent pass. It was instantly better with that.
It was quicker.
But what you notice is, like, they go through 2 or 3 phases and then it's just improv. Like, it just looks like pure improv, and there's guys over here, some guys running, some guys not running. Like, what is the plan with ball in hand? Because at the very start of the season they weren't even running, they were walking when they didn't have the ball, so the only plan was to kick. Then they put Carreras in, it got a little bit more exciting, you saw a little bit more, but you're seeing, like, they're going up against top defences, which was the story all throughout the Rugby Championship, and it's like, you gotta have something more after the first 2 phases, especially if you're repelled through one, because once that happened, they would just go round the corner, round the corner, round the corner, get poached.
And we know as well that we know that De La Fuente and Moroni
can exist players within a great system for attacking.
Mateo Carreras on the wing, Baptiste Delguy, who's a fine finisher. We know how good Buffelli is at fullback. There's a lot of talent in this team, and we might end up reflecting on this and wondering how on earth Ledesma and co have manufactured at such a blunt offense with this pool of resources in them.
Similar accusations, the kind of things criticisms we chuck at Munster at our local level, going like, look at your back players, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Where's the system?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm looking to see. I'm looking to see from the whole November series, develop the offense. Literally nothing else matters anymore because it's become beyond farcical. You can't just not have an attack.
No.
How do you ever,
as much as they've looked impressive in some of the defensive drills that they've managed to turn some of those test matches into for themselves, like they kicked the ball away all the time to the All Blacks. They had like 30% possession against the All Blacks, and they defended them very well as you could possibly expect to defend the All Blacks for like 70 minutes of game time. Like they didn't concede.
Not even the Springboks would be so brave.
No, indeed.
They like to do something off turnover ball, but I mean the defense is a part of this game. I mean it's definitely France. They've got a lot of distributing players. They haven't got that sort of that hard. I mean, Fiku can run that line, but they haven't got necessarily the big guy at 12. Between Ntamak and Jalibert, we might catch them a little lateral. They will hold their width well. They'll get out of the line. They'll look to sort of
send the likes of Matera down that channel at speed.
Yeah, but on the defensive end as well, just chopping. Generating some turnover penalties is going to be a huge part of it if France overplay, forcing them to kick the ball away in less than ideal circumstances, being an oppressive physical presence, especially with the record you have against France. You know that the matchup isn't terrible in the past, and plenty of these players will have positive memories against them. So it's just a question of winning that pack battle up front, getting on top of the likes of Woki, forcing some knock-ons, some errors, and creating a bit of a dogfight.
That's the stuff for them.
Within that, then they will have to do something with the ball, and that's what you want to see. You want to see them applying a bit more shape and structure to what they're doing, as you say, folding quicker and bringing tempo on the ball, getting your likes of Issa in a bit more space, maybe getting Issa a bit wider, Matera a bit wider,
because he can play a bit of ball, Montoya even a bit wider, some of these
right.
forwards who can link up then, because I want to see a plan of action with the ball in hand. I haven't yet seen Cheika's fingerprints on this team. I've seen Ledesma's all over it, but Cheika came in, I was excited. I've yet to see the impact really. Carreras is now at 10, which is positive. Like Sanchez is still all class,
and he's on the bench. Sanchez, if they need him, bring the kicking game, the 50-22s off the bench.
Sure, and their maul is decent potentially as well. That is an in for them. But we just broadly, what you want to see is just nuggets of thought given to the offense, because if they rock up again and they defend really well and they just have no interest in attacking with the ball,
eventually France will get them
and
win it by 2 scores.
Exactly. Even if they create a dogfight in that scenario, they'll only accrue 9 or 12 points and they'll lose that dogfight then, and that's that's got to be a point of concern for them, because as you say, their identity isn't just bullish forward pack. It may have been at the tail end of the 1990s, which is when Ledesma's kind of harking back to, but no, at their very best they are silky and flowy, as well as having all of the nuts and bolts and having a good set piece and a good forward pack in general,
and a good kicking game.
They can run the ball, and they have fast wingers, and they have so many wingers that it's tough to kind of pick a back three. They actually have loads available. Argentina XV or Argentina 15's back three is invariably class as well. You just got to be executing a few plans to try and find them.
Absolutely, yeah. With all that said, do you see the Pumas putting up a fight here?
No. Well, yes, I do see them putting up a fight, but whether it's like a legal fight, I don't know. Is Kramer just going to lay out Woki when the ref's not looking?
Yeah, there's definitely an awful lot of yellow card candidates still in the team.
Yeah, and France are a team that can frustrate you just by playing good ball, and this Argentinian team can be tilted very much so. I'm hoping that we see a combative Argentina that managed to marry being good and aggressive in both line speed and defense and all of this with discipline, because that's the main, as much as the offense that we that from a 2-year picture, the offense needs to be started to be developed, but from a next week kind of picture, similar to what we were saying about Spain earlier on, it's just rein that in. They've been on the wrong side of the whistle all season long, and it doesn't look set to change unless they do something drastically different. But not too, they still need to bring the energy in the thing, but just some of the bizarre penalties that they've been giving away need to stop. If they're to have any chance of winning in Paris, it needs to be a pretty clean but physical, combative display.
No question, and they do need to get on top of the offense. That much is true. We can agree on that, Ledesma. But you also got to have an offense of your own. I think that France too strong, too good, too quick. I kind of just see them like it'll be sort of a combative enough game. It'll never look like France are head and shoulders above, but they'll find tries in moments. The Stade de France crowd will get cheering. They'll maybe work a 17-3 lead that gets pegged back to 17-10 with a Montoya maul try, but then they'll get another try, and then maybe a kick or two, and win it something like 27-13 or something like that.
Yeah, it's
just a comfortable win.
Probably accurate assessment of it. Like, I mean, maybe France get the heebie-jeebies and they're just a bogey side, and then you end up in a scrap, maybe. But
I don't see that.
I don't see it. I just on paper.
Dupont's form so good. These guys are in such good form,
lighting it up. Like, I think too much quality and just too as good as France's defense has been, and it was a story last season because they ended up defending for most of their games for the whole season and doing it well under Sean Edwards. They haven't neglected the offense. They haven't managed to negotiate the territory game as well as they ought to, but when they have a chance to strike, they do look to strike. And that was true with their chain strip in Australia as well, with you think Kuyu linking up with Teddy Thomas and all these guys like they have never ignored or shied away from their offensive instincts, and certainly in Galtier's project that is a firm part of their focus. I think they'll win handy enough 2 or 3 scores in it. They're
moving really in the right direction, whereas the Pumas, I don't know.
It's not quite the same as like England Tonga. Like the Pumas are still a tier 1 side, and they have a tier 1 physicality and a tier 1 defense. They're just not a complete team at the minute.
No, that's correct. Yeah, so I would back France on that one.
Thank you very much for watching that video. If you're new here, please do like and subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when we upload again. But mainly, please drop a comment down below. We enjoy hearing your thoughts on it. Thanks.